Good evening, everyone. Associate Dean of the School of Business, Michael Henry. Program Chair of Early Learning and Child Care Program, Jane Hughes. Friends, family, donors all. It's a pleasure to see you here this evening. I believe I've said this to each of you in person, and if I haven't, then accept this as thank you. Thank you for enabling this evening to take place. Your donations to the fund when I ran the Ironman in 2007 have now blossomed into a full-fledged endowment here. Thanks to a donation from Mom and Dad some time ago, recently, the government has been able to come on board and double the amount that we had set aside. And so that roughly $25,000 fund now is in perpetuity and will give a $1,000 scholarship out every year now in perpetuity to a lucky student. And we'll be able to meet our first recipient later this evening. In reflecting on these remarks, it struck me how much we are affected as human beings by relationships. Our relationship with our natural environment defines and determines how we feed ourselves, how we build our cities, how we shape our world. Our relationships with each other determine what kind of societies we build, who we choose as friends, and which special friend among those friends become that lifelong partner. Those of us who are lucky enough and choose to pursue relationships are blessed with a life that is much richer and fuller than those who shun them. And the energy that binds these relationships is love. The stronger the love between two people, between a person and a city, between a cause that one loves and that thing, the stronger the relationship. So the stronger the love, the deeper the relationship. It's relationships that led me to the Ironman. Terence Filowich, a longtime friend, fraternity brother, a student government compatriot, was running the Ironman, and so was Vince Tejada, an equally longtime friend and a work colleague. And so I went to support them thinking they were incredibly nuts, and somehow, before I left Penticton, had signed up to do the one in 2007. Throughout my preparation for the event, my relationships with others changed. I had less time and more focus. Some couldn't grasp what I was doing. I think there was at least once where Mark and Leanne thought that I'd come back from Penticton via another planet once again, but when they knew and understood why I was doing it, they were on board. My Aunt Joyce, who's in the room, with her husband Marvin, we have cabins out at the lake together at Ross Haven, and I'm pretty sure this was like, what the heck are you doing, kiddo? Because every time I'd come in from a training run, she'd say, okay, how far today? So if I'd been riding, it would be 80K or 100K or 140K. If I'd been running, it would be 12 or 14 miles, and she'd just shake her head and smile. Mom and Dad knew that they'd be at the finish line, and I think we're just hoping that I wouldn't be taken away on a stretcher. I wasn't. Jared Smith, who I'd had the pleasure of knowing for some 8 years at that point, is a third-level black belt in karate, third-level Dan in black belt in karate, and he's a man who was always supportive of my pursuits, and he was shocked into a stony silence when I told him that I planned to complete the Ironman early in September 2006, the following year. He was clearly concerned for me and for my mental state. But by the time I finished explaining why I wanted to do it, I could already feel that he was walking with me, and he finished that conversation by saying, okay, Boissonnault, let's get training. My relationship with self changed. An already healthy confidence evolved into something more steely, indeed more like iron. I spent a lot of time alone, a lot of time thinking about life and thinking about Lisa. And sometime during that training, I heard on the radio, heard on CBC, Ian McKenzie, who's the brother of Doug, of Bob and Doug McKenzie, Hoser fame. And he was writing a novel about a fictional character losing his father. And then the two McKenzie brothers unexpectedly lost their father. And he said, who was I to pretend I knew what that was like until the event actually happened? And he coined this really interesting phrase, which was transitioning from loving the presence of someone to learning how to love the absence of someone. And I think grief is the journey that we have to go through to transition from loving the presence to loving the absence. And as I rode the hours away, it struck me that I was rebuilding my relationship to my sister. I remember some dark training days in the lake and some equally dark mornings in the middle of November going out on the bike when I would just let her spirit guide me. I was learning how to relate to her spirit. Those of us who are lucky enough to have experienced strong relationships know that they can be sustained beyond the early presence of one of the parties. Lisa transformed me into an athlete 10 years after her death. She continues to shape our lives today. We are all here tonight because of her spirit and the waves that this event set forth. She continues to enrich our lives by introducing us to people that were connected to her that she never even got the chance to know. Dale and Paulette Barry have come into our lives, as have Angela and Chris Massey. Let me end these remarks with sharing one last example that happened quite recently of how Lisa continues to influence our lives. 2 weeks ago, I traveled to Belize for an advanced planning trip for Literacy Without Borders, an NGO that a group of us have started. And I was looking for a sign that we were on the right path, because this is a new thing. This is a new NGO. We got our growing pains. We got no money. We got lots of hope, lots of volunteers, and lots of willpower. And there we were heading into a foreign country to do what? Build new relationships. And I just wanted a sign. So on the first night we got there, we had dinner, and in Belize City, when it's dark and it's 9 o'clock, that city shuts down. So you retire to your hotel room, which is what I did. Fired up the computer, and I went on Facebook, which I must admit I do rarely. And I saw 2 messages that really struck me. And it was a message from Angela Massey. Like, who is this? And the simple message was, do you have a sister named Lisa? And then another message 3 days later, I should have explained myself, because I didn't respond. I don't go on Facebook enough. I should have explained myself. I'm Lisa's sister, and I'm wondering if you're her brother. And I was stunned. And I had my sign. And I wrote back right away a very long email saying, this is remarkable, glad you've connected with us, with me, and by the way, there's this event. I had been thinking of Angela on the plane ride over as I was doing the list for this event, saying, I don't know how to get in contact with her, but I'm sure Dale would, and she found me. Lisa's spirit was working her magic once again, and that same magic is evident in the room tonight for the fact that you are all present. The relationships in this room and the love that is represented by all of them sustain us. To each of you for making this endowment possible, and to Grant MacEwan University for celebrating with us and having the foresight and compassion to mark this occasion, you have my family's deepest thanks. To everyone here, I hope that you will find yourself able, as I have learned to be open to the journey that relating to spirit can bring. I found that it's definitely worth the ride. Thanks.